Okay, so we're actually going to go ahead and get started right now. Thank you everyone for joining us for this Young Alumni panel. This is part of a webinar series that we're doing with the College of Engineering. So we have a few past webinars that we've been doing for prospective students. And for this webinar specifically, we're actually going to be talking to some recent alumni from the College of Engineering. So thank you all for joining us. The way this webinar is going to work is it's actually going to be an interactive webinar. So we ask that you guys please use the chat that you can see at the bottom of your screen. There should be a little Q&A bubble there, and you can click on that and enter any questions that you may want to ask to our panelists at any time during this video. And we do have some ambassadors here that are going to help moderate this discussion, and we're going to be periodically checking that Q&A and asking them to our panelists. So feel free to use that, and we're going to be drawing the questions from there. So before we go ahead and get into the panelist discussion, I do want to introduce all the ambassadors that we have here today that are going to help moderate the discussion. So my name is Sadie, and I'm a senior in chemical engineering here at Oregon State, and I'll be graduating this June, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Marissa.
Hi everyone, my name is Marissa. I'm a fourth-year student studying bioengineering with a minor in psychology, and I will also be graduating in June. I'm going to pass it off to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a third-year student studying chemical engineering. I'll pass it off to Carly.
Hey everyone, my name is Carly. I'm a senior studying civil engineering, and I'll also be graduating in June. I'm going to pass it off to Sneha.
Hi everyone, I'm Sneha. I'm a senior in industrial engineering, and I'm graduating this December.
Thank you for all your introductions. So again, we're part of the College of Engineering Ambassador Program. So that means we just help to promote the College of Engineering and work with both prospective students and students on campus and hold different engineering events. And just another quick reminder, this webinar will be recorded and posted on our website. So if you miss anything, you can always go and look at it for your reference later. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get into our panelist discussion. And first, I'm going to just help and introduce our panelists. So could each of the panelists please just briefly tell us your name, where you're from, the year and major that you graduated with from Oregon State, and then where you currently work and maybe some of the things that you were involved in while you were at Oregon State. So with that, we'll start with Hannah.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Jenkins, and I graduated from Oregon State in 2015, so 5 years ago. Time flies after you graduate, in civil engineering, and I'm from Portland, and I still live in Portland, and I work for a general contractor, Hoffman Construction, and some things I was involved in, I don't really know how to answer this question. I did some clubs, AGC, ASCE. I wouldn't say I kind of dabbled in all of them. I wasn't a really strong member in any of them, but I mean, that's kind of the fun part of Oregon State is you can be a little part of everything.
Thank you, Hannah. Next, we'll go over to Noemi.
Hi everyone, my name is Noemi Midras. I'm from Belgium, and I graduated from Oregon State with a major in chemical engineering last June. So it's already been almost a year. I now work at HP, still here in Corvallis, and some things I was involved in as a student. Well, I was a student athlete, so I was part of the swimming team when it still existed, and I was also involved in the Student Leadership Academy and in the Engineering Student Council, as well as the Sports Engineering Club.
Thank you, Noemi, and then I'll pass it off to Colin.
Hi, my name is Colin Cellini. I graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering in 2016, and then I went on to go get my Master's in Electrical and Computer Engineering at OSU and finishing that in 2019. Right now I work for Portland General Electric, which is, PGE, often confused with PG&E, which is the California utility. And I work there as an energy storage engineer. I would say at OSU, I didn't do a lot of extracurricular activities, though I was a TA when I was a master's student. But one thing I did do was the college radio station, KBVR. The people there were great, and as someone that loves music, getting to share my love of music with other people was really fun. So.
Thank you, Colin, and then I'll pass it off to Thuong.
Hi everyone, my name is Thuong. I'm from Vietnam and I graduated last year from Oregon State. I major in mechanical engineering. Right now I'm working as a design engineer at Weir Esco, a company in Portland. And when I was at OSU, I got involved with Formula SAE, a Formula style car race team, and then Student Leadership Academy, International Club, Language Club.
Thank you, Thuong, and thank you to all of our panelists for your introduction. So we're going to dive into some of our other questions. So with that, Marissa, could you start us off with the first question?
Yeah, so our first question is, what is your role with the company that you work at right now? And then if you could talk about a little bit of what that entails as well. And we're going to start off with Noemi.
So I'm an R&D engineer in the metal 3D printing group at HP. So my role is pretty diverse, I would say. I got hired on our materials team, so I'm in charge with other people, of course, of integrating new materials with our 3D printers and everything that goes with it. So it might be new processes and other new technologies that we have to implement with that. So it's a pretty diverse role, I would say, though. I have a lot of different projects that don't all relate to materials. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to pass it to Colin next.
So at my department in PGE, we call ourselves Grid Edge Solutions. And what that basically involves is a lot of kind of innovative thinking in terms of how we want to transform the grid using technologies that make, it makes using power from the grid more of a collaborative thing between the utility and customers, because a lot of times with electrical utilities, a lot of our goals revolve around making the grid cleaner, safer, more reliable. And so this sort of collaboration between, maybe a customer has solar panels, which help offset, coal or gas consumption somewhere else, and they want to help green our grid. And what technologies can we use and how can we interact with them to, help transform our grid into the kind of clean, high-tech future grid that we're all striving for. So that's my department kind of handles that. And as an energy storage engineer, I handle a lot of the batteries, like for example, a Tesla Powerwall 2 that people may have heard of, or maybe they know someone who has that installed in their house. That is an example of an energy storage technology that our department is looking to harness and work with customers in order to utilize those best for the grid. That's the short of it.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to pass it off to Thuong.
Yeah, so I'm a mechanical design engineer, and so I'm in the dredge team. So if you ever see the Palm Island in Dubai, is a result of dredging and redeposit the sand into the shape that they want. And so I'm so we in our team, we design what's called a cutter head. So it's like a rotating tool that in front of the dredger, and they remove sand under the water. And so as my role, I get to design new products, new components, materials, and also do a lot of customer and manufacturing support. So learning not just about designing, but also manufacturing, how they make the tools. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Hannah.
So at my company, I am a project engineer. Project engineer is basically a big word for managing all the different types of engineering. So when you go into working for a general contractor, you take the plans that mechanical, civil, electrical engineers create, and you get all of them and you try to go out and build them. So I've done a lot of work on hospitals, so trying to coordinate how MRI machines and CT scanners work, what structurally supports them, what mechanical venting needs to happen. So I really like that part of my job because I get to dabble in all sorts of engineering and be responsible for dealing with lots of different people and lots of different scopes. So that's what I do.
Thank you all. So we're gonna pass it off to Lauren for the next question.
All right, our next question is, can you please talk about your transition from high school to college and the steps you took to make it a successful one? So like, did you focus on academics or student orgs? How was that transition for you? I'll pass it off to Noemi.
So I went to high school in Belgium, so it was a little bit different than in the US. We didn't have any student organizations or things like that. So for me, I would say I mainly focused on school and sports because that's all I was doing. And I just tried to do the best I could and get the best grades I could while still enjoying some kind of social life to get me as ready as I could for college. But you'll have to adapt anyway. So I would say just do your best, but still have fun while being in high school and living at home.
Thanks, Noemi. I'll pass it off to Colin.
Sorry, I had a little trouble finding the unmute button for some reason. Okay, so we're talking about our transition from high school to college. I think the most crucial thing for me was probably finding a base of friends. And in that respect, I feel like staying at the dorms for the first year probably did help. By chatting with people, branching out and getting to meet new folks, I found groups of people that I could both study with and groups of people that I could unwind and play video games with. And so I feel like balancing the stress of coursework was in the exams with the friendships and relationships was all very important for me. It probably helped that all of my friends went off to different colleges from high school, so I kind of started fresh. But so I couldn't really rely on the old comforts. I did try out a few clubs, but my time management was pretty poor, so I didn't really stick with any of those. And in engineering, I feel like the labs in particular really helped me meet new folks because you kind of have that shared struggle of like, oh no, I soldered a transistor backwards and it's not working, and you know, other people know that pain. So yeah.
Thanks, Colin. I'll pass it off to Tuong.
Yeah, so I kind of skipped high school and went to early college. So my transition is a little bit unique. But I actually went to a community college before I transferred to OSU, and I know there are quite a few transfer students here as well. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So I got a lot involved with the student government here at my community college and also OSU. I also do a lot of like volunteer, go to school events because there are so many people out there, and it's a part to help me explore myself, what I like, what I want. And through that, I meet the people who have the same interests that I do. And I was able to make quite a few friends that, you know, have the same, share the same interests. Yeah.
Great. And our last answer from Hannah, please.
So coming from Portland, I had a lot of people I knew that were going to Oregon State. You know, I went to a really big high school, so I knew a ton of people going to Oregon State, and my goal was to not hang out with any of those people and make new friends. So I did the roommate matching at Oregon State, and which 90% of those work out really well. Mine was terrible, which really was good for me in the end because it forced me to go meet a ton of different people that weren't my roommate. And I ended up meeting 5 really awesome girls that we lived with the rest of my time in college, and we're still super best friends. So We all were different majors, which was kind of helpful. You automatically, I think, make a lot of friends in engineering just because, like Colin said, you're struggling and you're in pain together. But having some friends that are outside of engineering too really helps broaden your social aspect at Oregon State.
Great, thank you all. I'll pass it off to Carly for our next question.
All right, so our next question is, what was your path from graduation to the job you hold now? Maybe you had an internship or something along those lines that kind of helped guide you towards that career choice. If you could talk a little bit more about that, and we'll start with Tuong.
Yeah, so what's awesome about College of Engineering at OSU is they have the MECOP program. It's a program that let you get onto different internships during your summer, like 2 different summers. And so I went on to different internship programs, and that's really helped me with networking, and also because mechanical engineering is so broad. And at that time, I was like, I don't know what I want. You can go to many different fields. You can do more like manufacturing side or design focused. And so that really helped me understand about the job of an engineer, like learn more about their work and explore what I want. And so I know that after that, I want to be more in staying in at the office, design based on customer requirements, do prototype and things like that. And that when I got the job at ESCO, I was really happy because there were engineers focused on design and willing to teach me and help me, and I get to give them opportunities to design new parts.
Great, thank you. We'll go off to Hannah.
Like Tuong, I also did the CCOP program. So for civil, it's CCOP, and mechanical, it's MECOP. But I did my first internship in CCOP with Portland Water Bureau, and I learned how much I did not want to be in design. Design is awesome, and lots of people are really good at it, but it wasn't for me. And so it was really cool getting to experience that while I was still in school. And actually, who I work for now, Hoffman, was the general contractor on the project I was working on my CCOP job. And Hoffman offered me an internship after I was done with my first CCOP internship. So I didn't do another one, and I still work for them today. So there's lots of really good opportunities for internships at Oregon State.
Thank you, Hannah. We'll go to Naomi next.
So I had 2 internships, and that's through MECOP or CCOP. I worked at HP actually in different roles and different internships, but I would say definitely being involved with the Leadership Academy, the Engineering Student Council, and in a club really helped me kind of work on that networking aspect and learning how to interact with professionals. And that really helped going into interviews all through my senior year when I was applying for other companies. And I definitely did learn a lot. I did not have a job when I graduated, and it wasn't the end of the world. Just keep using your connections and something will work out, I would say. So yeah, don't lose hope if you don't have a job already lined up for months before graduation.
All right, and then last but not least, we'll go to Colin.
Yeah, so my story is kind of long and meandering, but I'll try to make it quick. So for my bachelor's in spring 2016, because I have a master's now, I actually got turned down for all my applications to grad school, except for one that just kind of wanted my money because they wanted to charge me $40K a year to attend. Don't do that. You're worth more than that. I couldn't really find a job, and I wasn't really willing to branch out as much as I probably should have. And so I worked in a semiconductor fab, which is fancy talk for a factory that makes chips for mobile devices and computers and so on, as a technician, which means I operated the machines that made the chips. It was not an engineering job. It was kind of a low-level job. Some of the older women there warned me not to get stuck in this job. So I took their advice, and one day I cold called one of the professors at OSU about my desire to go to grad school. Apparently I called him at a perfect time, and he invited me down to OSU, and I got into grad school like the next term, which was winter 2017. I got a scholarship 6 months later, and then later after that, I think due to my TA position, I actually got a 6-month internship offer with Tesla in 2018, working with large-scale battery systems. And then I graduated OSU with a master's shortly after that, but it would be 5 more months of a pretty long job hunt before I got an actual job. And that was kind of difficult mentally, but I persevered through it, made sure to sell myself well, and I was able to hold out until I got this job with PGE, which I consider to be my dream job. So it works out.
Great. Thank you all so much for your answers. I'm now going to pass it off to Sneha, who has a couple of questions from the chat.
Awesome. So before I start answering the questions, there were a couple questions that I answered on the Q&A function, so you can go check those out. But they were about the Engineering Student Council. So just to clarify what that is, it's a group of student leadership in the College of Engineering. And we put on different events in the college for the student body, as well as manage the 65 plus different engineering clubs that we have. And all of us have been part of some club or the other at some point. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out on our website. But the first question I have for our panelists is, what does a typical workday look like for you? And how much time do you spend at a desk versus in the field doing hands-on stuff? Hannah, do you want to go first?
Sure. So my typical day, I get to work at 5:30, and I get ready for the crews to come in and ask me lots and lots of questions. Right now I'm on a project where we're getting out of the ground, so lots of concrete, and we go out and we do stretch and flex. So 100 men and women are out there stretching and flexing. It's a great part of my day. And I probably spend 70% of my day in the field and 30% at my desk. I work a lot, so it's 6:55 and I'm still here. But I talk to the architect and the structural engineer and mechanical engineer, asking clarification questions to keep the job going. That's kind of a typical day for me.
Thank you, Hannah. Noemi, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I would say my typical day starts around 7 and will go until 4 or 5. It really depends on meetings. Typically, those will kind of structure my day. We do work a lot with Barcelona, so we have to adapt with the time difference. So that kind of plays a role. But I would say I work a lot in the lab. Obviously now I can't, so we've had to adapt, and everything is online, which is actually totally doable. And new projects came up, but I would say it's about 60 to 40% lab to desk work. It really depends on the period and what kind of projects I have going on. So it's pretty diverse, which I love about it.
Thank you. Chuang, do you want to tell us about your typical workday?
Yeah, so my workday pretty varies by day. But most of the time I'll be at my desk helping doing customer support, manufacturing support if they have questions. And then if I'm working on a new product, that would be into a lot of design work and then possibly testing, prototyping. I also spend, because I'm new to the company, I also spend quite a lot of time meeting with other teams, just learning from them. And that's like really the culture of the company that I'm working at, that they're like really helping each other out, especially to new engineers. And so because I'm new, I'm still like learning a lot as well.
Great. And Colin, do you want to share about your work experience?
Yeah, so I would say that my work day is about, well, pre-coronavirus, I would say it was probably like 80% in the office. A lot of what we do is kind of collaboration between people and a lot of program development and modeling and analysis, which is all done on computer. Every so often we do get to see the fruits of our labor and well, maybe not our labor, but our, the projects that we develop, and we can do site visits where we see the batteries that that are being installed. And we do sometimes get to go out and visit sites to just get a lay of the land, understand what and who we are working with, because we serve a pretty big area. We serve most of Portland, and we serve towns and communities all down I-5 until Salem. We serve about half of Salem, so it's a pretty big area, and it's a pretty diverse range of folks. So we want to make sure that we understand the people that we're serving and the people that we're developing these grid products and programs for. But it's mostly office work for me. Yeah.
Awesome. So our next question is also from the audience. How and when were you hired by the company that you now work for? So Noemi, do you want to go first?
So as I mentioned before, I got hired actually about a month after I graduated, and I got hired by the manager I worked for as an intern. I stayed in contact with him, and as soon as a position opened up, he reached out to me and thought I was a good person for it. So definitely use your connections. That helps, and take the time to stay in contact with them, because that's important, and that might work out perfectly with your timing as well.
Thank you. And Tuong, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I actually went to a career fair during my last year, and I talked to quite a lot of companies, and ESCO really stood out, but I didn't. So I gave them my resume, and 3 months later, which is around the time that I'm graduating, they give me a call and interview me. And I really like the culture there and the people there that I talked during the career fair and what they do. And so that's the job.
Colin, would you like to go next?
This is a question about how we got our jobs.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I graduated with a master's. Well, that was a while ago. People may have forgotten, but I graduated with a master's of science in electrical and computer engineering. I finished that in about December of 2018, and then I was on like a 5-month-long job hunt. I was a little picky because I wanted to make sure that I would enjoy what I did. But this position at PGE opened up in probably March. I didn't hear back from them until April, and then the interview process itself went by pretty fast. And then I got hired in May. So I've been working since May 20th, and my 1-year anniversary is coming up pretty soon.
Well, congratulations. And Hannah, would you like to tell us about your experience with how you got hired?
Yeah, so I already touched on it a little bit, getting kind of offered an internship with Hoffman while I was at the Water Bureau. So my senior year of college in December, so 6 months before I graduated, I started as an intern at Hoffman, and I actually got to work as an intern on the Strand Ag renovation. So in the quad, which was really cool because I went to school and I was interning with the company that I still work with, and it was awesome, especially because it's really fun to build stuff at Oregon State. But yeah, got hired full time as soon as I graduated, and I'm still here.
Awesome. So I'll hand it off to Sadie to ask the next question.
Great, thank you, Sneha. So we have another question from the chat. So this question is, would you say that the major you get or the job that you get defines what you do as an engineer? They kind of just want to know how much of your major determines what you do in your job. So we'll start with Colin.
Well, speaking from a background of electrical and computer engineering, honestly, the field is pretty big. You could go in many different directions. It just kind of depends on what you find the most interesting and what you really want to pursue. That being said, some paths do lend themselves better to working in the industry, whereas some paths lend themselves better to working in academia. Again, it depends on what you find the most interesting and where you feel like you can apply what you want to do. There's also a lot of crossover between computer science skills and electrical and computer engineering skills. So with this major, you honestly have a pretty broad umbrella of things that you could do if if you really want to do it and you find an employer willing, to hire you for it. I think that's, yeah.
Thank you, Colin. And then I'll hand it off to Hannah.
I'd say no, because I went to school for civil engineering and I ended up being a general contractor. I will say, as a general contractor, we hire all different types of civil engineering engineering majors. So mechanical, electrical, civil. We hire pretty much anyone who wants to kind of work on the job site. Any background in engineering is really good for that. And I'd say it really goes both ways. You learn, up until a certain point, everyone's really taking the same classes. It's not until your junior and senior year, partway through your junior year, you're really taking those specific courses, and you have a lot of the same background knowledge. So, if you graduated in mechanical and you wanted to switch to something else, I wouldn't say you're at a loss and it was a waste, because you definitely could still make that change.
Thank you, Hannah. And then I'll pass it off to Tuong.
Yeah, I totally agree with Hannah, especially I'm major in mechanical engineering, and it's a really, really big field that you can literally go to anywhere: automotive, aerospace, even medical. For example, when I was at OSU, I got involved with the Formula race car group, and that's really kind of got me into the direction I got. Quite a lot of companies contact me for their available positions, but then after a while I realized that I want to try something new, so I went with ESCO. So yeah, totally, what the major you get doesn't really define. It's really up to your interest.
Thank you. And then I'll pass it off to Noemi.
I would agree with that. I think the major itself doesn't define what you will do in the future. It does guide it to a certain point, but I think if you're really passionate about something, you can always find a way to, drive your resume toward that passion, or drive your cover letter, or just your interview. So, it's good to do things like minors if you have an interest and maybe that the major doesn't exist in the field you're interested in. Minors, I think, help a lot. Doing side projects, personal projects help a lot too. And just getting internships, like, you will learn a lot of other skills that school can't really teach you. So I would use those at your advantage to guide your career and wherever you want to go. And once you get a first job, it doesn't mean you will stay in that field forever either. I think this is a discussion you have to have with, your employers when you start. And as you learn more and more, you can try to slowly define, what you're into and what you're interested in, and kind of guide your projects towards that path.
Thank you. So then our next question is, what were the most important experiences at Oregon State that helped prepare you for your career? And then we'll start it off with Tuong.
I think getting involved on campus in general just really helped when I was able, because getting involved with the clubs, different clubs, doesn't have to be engineering clubs. It shows to the employer who you are, and also getting involved with engineering club leadership clubs, it helps show that you are able to learn new skills, that you have those soft skills in you. And I think like having some engineering experience, even just I was a student research assistant, that's really helped. That's really lost my thought right there, but that's really helped me. I would say like explore my interests and like learn about myself, because college is all about exploring and learning what you like, what your interest is. And that's really helped to guide me to the path that I choose.
Thank you. And then I'll pass it off to Colin.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that last point, but I'm also not the best person to ask for this. I feel like I probably didn't take advantage enough of OSU's resources, but I do feel like being deliberate about which classes I chose once I reached the 3rd and 4th year, with the caveat that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, was pretty helpful. Just because once I did get a job, it's a lot of the information that some people may have to be filled in on. I felt like I already had that knowledge because I just like it got drilled into me, throughout the 2 upperclassmen years. Beyond that, I really tried to attend job fairs very often, and take advantage of the career readiness resources that OSU had. And I felt that they were very useful. The career fairs, even if you don't get an internship out of them, are good to kind of assess the state of the industry and the state of the people in the industry. And I also found their speed mock interviews to be extremely helpful. I learned a lot of this is the kind of body language that you want to have when you're interviewing, and you're doing this, don't do that sort of thing, be more confident, use more confident body language, that sort of thing. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And then I'll pass it off to Hannah.
For me, some of the most useful experiences in my college career were learning to ask for help at office hours. That translates a lot to being a new hire at any job. You have no idea what you're doing, no matter what degree you get and where you go. You will have no idea what you're doing when you graduate. Be prepared. It's okay. Everyone's the same. But not being afraid to ask for help and saying, this makes literally no sense. I don't get it. Can you please help me? That was really powerful for me, and it helped me really excel. And also learning how to understand a deadline, and really being able to, I don't want to say cram, but focus and put in the work and meet the deadline. So those are, for me, some really applicable things that I took out from college.
Thank you, sorry. And then can Noemi give an answer, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so I feel like every time I put myself in an uncomfortable situation, that's probably when I learned the most. Whether it was being in a group that I didn't know at all in a class, or going to a career fair, or taking a leadership position in some student organization, I feel like that's when you learn a lot and you're kind of put on the spot. So yeah, I think really using those, not be afraid to feel uncomfortable and kind of putting yourself out there, even though you don't feel ready, or you feel like you don't have the right skills or the right knowledge. I feel like just be confident that you know how to learn, and I think that's the most important part of it, whatever experience you decide to take on in school and college.
Thank you, Noemi. Great words of advice. I'll pass it off to Marissa for our next question.
Yeah, so our next question is, what would one piece of advice you would give to your freshman year self? And if you could go back in time to your freshman year of college, would you do anything differently? So we'll start off with Tuong.
Yeah, I would say, it's never too early to start doing something. It's never too early to talk to somebody at school, make new friends, get involved with a club. And when I was a freshman, I was like, maybe I'm not ready to get involved with that Formula car racing club. That's too much for me. And then when I got involved, in my second year, I'm like, oh, everyone's already got involved during their freshman. I should have done that. Things like that. And just don't afraid to ask for resources. OSU has a lot of resources that can help you, and utilize those resources as well. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And then we'll go to Colin.
Yeah, the first year, it was actually a pretty good year for me. So it's kind of funny. I don't really know how much I'd change, but if you're anything like I was, you probably didn't really have to try in high school to get good grades, but you do have to in college, and at least for some classes. So I'd probably tell my first year self to more, you know, more purposefully learn how to study and how to not procrastinate, because that was definitely a big flaw of mine. I mean, that physics homework takes longer than you think. And also, I would say go see the theater department's plays when they do them, because they're great, and the arts need love too. I would also probably tell myself to start exercising a bit earlier, because I actually have a love for lifting that I didn't develop until the fourth year, and I feel like I could have had those three extra years on me. But yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So then we'll pass it to Noemi.
I guess I have two pieces of advice. One is value your sleep, kind of like Colin said. I think it's really important to learn how to manage your time and not wait until the last minute to do everything, because it does accumulate and you think it's going to get better the following week, but then you actually end up having 10 more homeworks that just drop on your lap. So that's one thing. You know, don't overdo it. The worry will still be there the next day. So just try to manage your time. And then I would say the second piece of advice is don't judge a class based on its reputation. I think a lot of the time people will get scared, you know, to take that physics class or PChem class or whatever it is for you and your major. But I think it's just adding stress on you, and just see as you go. I mean, you might end up having a really good professor that will totally make sense with you, and, you know, don't be afraid to use office hours. They're there for a reason. So yeah, I would say those two pieces of advice, I could have used them my freshman year.
Oh, that's great advice. And then Hannah?
I think if I could go back, I would have signed up for Engineering 101 or Engineering 111, the course that tells you about all the different types of engineering. When I went into college, I was really set on being a golf course engineer. It wasn't really a thing, but it was some type of geotechnical engineer that I told myself that's really what I wanted to do. And then I took my first geotechnical engineering course and realized how horrible it was. For me, it's a great topic, but it wasn't what I was going to do. So, and it's okay to embrace those experiences, to say, oh yeah, you know, this is what I thought I liked, and no, I don't. So for me, I wish I would have taken that class. I would also say, don't be afraid to drop a course if it's an elective and you really don't like it, because there's no sense in following through with a course that is an elective that you don't like, and to take elective courses. So I took guitar and yoga and golf and line dancing, and those were some of my favorite classes of college, and I use all those skills today. So not engineering, but they were still fun.
Awesome, thank you all. I'm going to pass it off to Sneha for our next question.
Thank you. So our next question's from our audience. How were you able to find a happy medium between your coursework and having a social life? And also, how much free time do you typically have on a daily basis? And this is talking about more when you were a student on campus. So Naomi, would you like to go first?
Sure. I would say it was kind of hard to find a social life while I was swimming and studying engineering, but I did make it work, and I actually used my class time and my practice time to develop those kind of social relationships. I mean, I got 20 friends right away from the swim team, and I really value those friendships, and I still have them now. So definitely don't feel like because it's school you can't, you know, make friends. How much free time I had, once again, it's kind of hard to say. I try to do most of my work during the week so that I could somehow enjoy my weekends, but sometimes you do have to catch up on work. So it's kind of hard, but just balance it so that you're healthy and you still have time to take care of yourself. I feel like that's the most important, because you do see people all day long throughout your classes. But yeah, I guess once I got done swimming, being involved in a lot of different groups helped kind of broaden that friendship network. So yeah, just get involved, get out there and like meet new people, and you'll make the time to hang out outside of school.
Yes. Colin, would you like to go next?
Sure. I honestly haven't thought about like how I find a happy medium. I've never really been like a workaholic or anything like that. So my life has trended towards me trying not to work, um, which I guess helps me find a bit of a happy medium in that sense. Just because I want to get my work done, and then I don't want to work. So the happy medium kind of came about just from my general sense of uh, need and desire to. I would say my happy medium almost came from my inner sense of where that medium is. So if I was getting too overworked, I'd know, because I couldn't even focus on the work because I'd just be too burnt out. And then I just go do something else for a while. I work pretty well in a flexible schedule where you're not working for a long time, like a constant pace, but rather you work hard and then you take some time to recuperate, and then you work hard, and so on and so forth. As far as how much free time I had, it kind of came down to how many credits I was taking. If I was taking 12 credits, it would be fine. I'd probably have at least a few hours a day to relax, spend some time with my girlfriend, spend some time with friends. But if I was taking if it was like a 15 credit term, it was kind of all over. There would be times when I just was constantly working, and if I wasn't working, then I was panicking about how I needed to be working. So it's variable, and I think it comes down to how many credits you need to take. So I think trying to keep that like 12, if you can manage it, trying to keep it down to like 12 credits a term seems to be a happy medium, at least for me.
Tuong, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I definitely echo that 12 credits per term, especially if you're in like your third and fourth year. You really don't want to cram all the class. You just, that's what I really wanted, is to be able to take the knowledge on that class. So I didn't want to cram up all those credits. I would say sometimes you've probably seen a lot of memes about being an engineering student and have no life, but I did have my friends who have different major than engineering, and we just gather up in the library and study together. So that's some of my social life right there during my third and fourth year, when I have like not much time to social. But my first and second year was not too bad. I actually went to a lot of events on campus, which is nice because OSU does host quite a lot of like evening events. So I went with my friends there after we study or something like that. That was pretty fun.
Thank you. And Hannah, would you like to share?
Yeah. Looking back, it's been a long time. So 5 years since I graduated, feels like a long time ago. I think I had more free time in college than I do now working in the real life. College was amazing, and I spent a majority of it in the lab or the library or studying, but there's so many things going on at Oregon State. There's always a party in the quad. There's, stuff going on in Monroe. There's just people doing weird stuff on the street. You can walk to your classes, so you just see people everywhere. You're never really alone, unless you live alone. But there's so many opportunities to be social and still be a hardworking engineering student. They don't have to be one or the other. So I can't tell you what percentage I spent doing social things or not. It's too long ago, but it was a good memory, so must have been enough.
Sounds good. Well, I'll just hand it off to Lauren to ask the next question.
All right, our next question is also from the audience. How did you know that engineering was for you? Colin, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I would say I always sort of knew. I grew up with engineering parents. Both of them were in the semiconductor industry. So I've grown up around some very smart and hardworking people, and both of them were engineers. So it kind of biased me towards towards engineering in general. Actually, my first choice was going to be music, but then I realized that would be probably a bad choice because I was neither good at composing nor playing music. And if I was going to go to college, I should probably be for something that I will actually get a job at the end of it for, and that I can actually be good at. So yeah, so it was just, I kind of always knew. It was the real interesting thing, I would say, for me was that in year 3, I went to a career fair and I talked to an alumni who worked for Hewlett Packard. And he kind of told me like, hey, if you're interested in this stuff, the stuff that he did, like you should take Power Electronics by Dr. Ted Brecken. And so I did that, and that's how I discovered that I was really into like power grids and power systems, and that is really what started my journey towards where I am now at Portland General Electric.
Thank you so much. Hannah, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I don't remember what the question was. Oh, engineering. No, not really. I knew I liked math, which I feel like that's where a lot of people start. They're like, I like math. I think I could be an engineer. And so in high school, I liked math and I was good at it. And so I thought engineering could be a good fit. And then, you know, as I went along, I met a lot of like-minded people. But being in engineering is such a big word. You know, I didn't really find out till probably my junior year what engineers really do. I think people asked me that every time I came home from break. What does an engineer do? And I had no idea, because they do a lot of things. So yeah, I think I molded into being an engineer and I like it.
Thanks, Hannah. Tuong, want to go next?
Yeah, I really don't know what I want to major in when I first started college, and it changed quite a couple times. Maybe I was thinking math, arts, and things like that, and I got a little bit confused and frustrated because I'm like, I don't want to change my major all the time. So I actually went to the career center and took the test, and they still haven't figured it out. And they told me to just start with what I don't like. You know, start taking classes, and I realized that those are the things that I don't want to do. And I was good at math, and I got involved with some other clubs. They were building 3D printed stuff, and I tried that, and I talked to people, and I'm like, maybe engineering is what I like. And so I took like an engineering 101 class, and that started from there.
Thank you. Want to wrap up for us, Noemi?
Sure. I guess I was also pretty like cliche. I liked math and science, so I was like, why not do engineering? I was actually debating between medicine, but I ended up going for the shorter option that was still very practical. And I actually really like the fact that engineers work through problems and learn how to make things from scratch. And I thought that was just very, very cool and just very broad too, because you can apply this kind of critical thinking to everything and anything, whether it's your own personal life or whether it's an actual technology that will help millions of people. So I just really loved the fact that it was so broad and open-ended in a way. And I figured there must be something in that field that I will like and enjoy to do for the rest of my life. So yeah, I just stuck with engineering.
Thank you. I'll pass it off to Carly for our last question.
All right, so I'm going to ask the panelists, keep this pretty brief as we are running low on time. What is your fondest memory of Oregon State? We'll start with Hannah.
My brief answer is I don't really have a one fondest memory, but just the fact that Oregon State is tailor-made for engineers. You know, it's kind of all about engineers at Oregon State. I mean, there's some other majors too, but it's really stacked for engineering, and lots of cool things to be involved in. And don't have to try super hard to fall into something to be involved in. And I really liked that about Oregon State.
Great, thank you. Noemi, you want to go next?
Sure. I think it's probably the most recent too, but I think commencement was probably my fondest memory of OSU. It was just so great to see all these people, you know, walking through this beautiful campus and just going towards getting that diploma and just realizing how many people made it and went through this and are going to be able to do great things in the near future. So that was just a really good memory I have from OSU amongst a lot of others.
Great. Tuan, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think OSU has a lot of activities and competitions for engineers, like for engineering students. Like I remember I was able to build a lot of things with my friends. Some of them turned out really good and some of them turned out not as good, but I made a lot of memories through those experiences.
All right, thank you. And Colin, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I would say probably my fondest memory of OSU is just the fact that you have this place where you have the most diverse range of people that you could probably find throughout your entire life. And so doing things like, you know, doing a joint radio show at KBVR with a graphic design student where you're playing these crazy tunes at 2 a.m., that sort of thing, those sort of things just make these special memories that you probably can't find anywhere else other than, you know, a place like OSU. So yeah, just the diverse cast of people that I was able to meet and be friends with, probably.
Great, thank you for sharing. I'm going to turn it back over to Sadie to wrap things up.
Great, thank you, Carly. And thank you so much to all the panelists that joined us this evening. This was a really great discussion, and I hope everyone that logged in enjoyed hearing from them. And thank you for all the really great questions. This has been really informative, and thank you to all the ambassadors that helped moderate it. So a reminder that this will be recorded if you want to go back and listen to it, and it will be put up on the College of Engineering website. And also a reminder that we do have live Zoom chats every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with College of Engineering ambassadors, and that's from 3 to 5 p.m. And you can find those on the College of Engineering website as well. So thank you again to everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.